So the CSC investigation was a giant nothing burger. Told you so. Locked on LSU. Here we go.
You are Locked On LSU, your daily podcast on the LSU Tigers. Part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
Okay, let's get it. It is Locked On LSU, your team every day. I'm your host, Matt Moscona. Thanks so much for making us your first listen. We are free, available wherever you get great podcasts. Of course, on YouTube as well, so please subscribe. As always, one of the fastest ways to help us grow is by leaving your comments below. So thank you sincerely for that. Thank you for helping make the Locked On Podcast Network the #1 sports podcast network. Thank you for listening or watching every single day on the Gulf Coast Sports and Entertainment Network. Today's episode is brought to you by Mazda. We put the same drive into every detail. Wins define the moment. Putting in the work, that defines you. Stay tuned for highlights in this week's Moving the Game Forward. There's more to a Mazda because there's more to you. So on Friday, the internet was set aflame with a report from The Athletic that LSU was being investigated by the CSC and the Collegiate Sports Commission. And a lot of people naturally assumed that this the inquiry was a result of LSU football assembling this incredible transfer portal class. That was this natural progression that everyone sort of thought. How did LSU land 42 players, 3 players in the top 5? Where did they get all the money? Clearly, they had to be doing something wrong, right? And The Athletic led you to believe that was the case because in their original post on Twitter, they had a photo of an LSU helmet. And in the story, they also mentioned Lane Kiffin and the DeMond Williams situation, the Washington quarterback. Anybody who knew nothing of the situation were to see that tweet, click the article, read it, you would have deduced that they were leading you to believe this was a football-related investigation. And oh, did LSU's rivals hem and haw and that? And I told you right here on this show, and shout out to the real ones. If you're an everydayer, go back and watch the episode. You don't need me to sit here and tell you. Go back and watch it. Because I did even a modicum of journalism and made phone calls and vetted sources to find out what was going on. And I told you this was a nothing burger. That it was one athlete, not football related. LSU and the CSC had been compliant and in communications. I even told you it was likely to be resolved over the weekend on Monday at the latest. And lo and behold, Monday, it was resolved. Monday evening, Zach Greenwell, LSU's Deputy Athletic Director for External Affairs, sent me a text with a statement that most of the media who covers LSU received the same statement. I'll read it to you very briefly. The CSC inquiry into non-reporting has been resolved with no disciplinary action. And any deals that require submission to NIL Go have been submitted. We appreciate the CSC's prompt review and resolution. A gigantic nothing burger. So there's 2 things that I think we have to take away from this, okay? Number 1 is the LSU on-field component of this, right? If Friday if you're an LSU fan, if you were fretting Friday thinking, oh my God, is this the Dabo calling out Pete Golding with the text messages moment for Lane Kiffin in this portal class? The answer is no. It actually has nothing whatsoever to do with football, something we told you here. And even we gave you more detail, which Zach Greenwell sort of alluded to there about non-reporting. Ultimately, as best as I can tell, is this was a situation where you had a student athlete who has an agent representing that student athlete. Again, I have not yet been told in what sport, male or female. However, one student athlete, the student athlete is represented by an agent. The agent fell behind on reporting deals to the CSC. Remember, any deal has to go through LSU, who then submits them to the CSC. So if this agent fell behind on reporting, or I was told there might have even been the situation where the deal, maybe they thought there was maybe trade involved. And so they thought maybe it didn't exceed $600. Well, as you heard in Zach Greenwell's statement, this has all been rectified now with no punishment. A gigantic nothing burger. So that's number one. The most important part here is LSU football is fine. Nothing is wrong. There's no punishment. There's nothing punitive. That's number one. And if you're watching or listening to this because you are a rival fan base and you don't like LSU, that's probably going to be devastating to you. But I think what I would say to you then is that I love this old saying, but by the grace of God, there go I. Because if you were hoping that LSU was going to get nailed on something like this, be careful, because what's the old saying? You point the finger at someone, you'll have three more pointing back at you. Like, that's the Ole Miss moment in all of this. When Ole Miss was accusing Lane Kiffin, I mean, and this is, when you talk about Walker Jones and the comments he made to Ross Dellinger, we've talked about here, the accusations from Ole Miss came. Well, then what happened? Well, here comes Dabo with receipts. So I guess all that to say, if from the LSU perspective, like, you don't want LSU to get pegged, because if you assume everyone is running afoul, then so are you. Now, I'm not sitting here saying that LSU is pristine. Please don't misunderstand me. I understand how business is done in college football today. So again, I'm not going to sit here and call out anybody for tampering or anything of the sort. I believe all of that is happening. I believe if the NCAA wanted to do a deep dive investigation into any football program, they could probably find text messages somewhere along the way from a staff member to a player at every program, LSU included. I don't have proof of that. I can't back that up. But what I can tell you is what I've explained in great detail many times on this show, which is how LSU was able to piece together the money to pay for the roster that it assembled, and did so above board. And this goes all the way back to Bryce Underwood's flip and LSU funding the collective and front loading in 2025 and having a lion's share of the 2025 revenue share partnered with the 2026 revenue share, and a great desire to win. And so energy behind Lane Kiffin, and boosters have come up with money. And I've also told you about how LSU is so far ahead with the NILSU Max program. It's why Nike chose to start their initiative with LSU. Like, all of this makes sense, and all of this is very legitimate. And LSU has been very progressive with all of the true third-party NIL stuff. And so it's helped them at this point, in this moment in time, build this roster for 2026. It may not always be like that, but it is right now. So I said there's two things. That was number one. Number one is LSU football is fine. Don't worry about it. Number two is shame on The Athletic. Those two reporters that wrote that story initially, the editor that let that go. Listen, I don't mean to sit here and tell you that I'm flawless. I've made mistakes. We've all made mistakes. And the best you can do is when you make a mistake, you own it, and you move on, learn from it. This wasn't a mistake. This was lazy. At best, lazy. And it was deceitful at worst. Now, I don't know the two reporters, so I don't know if this was deceitful. I don't know if they were intending to deceive their audience to believe there was something wrong with LSU because they had some ulterior motive. I don't know that. What I believe certainly is that this was just lazy journalism, because y'all, I made one phone call. One phone call. And in one phone call was able to, without beyond a shadow of a doubt, clarify that this investigation from the CSC did not involve LSU's football program. One phone call that I made. You're going to tell me national college football reporters with The Athletic couldn't have made that same phone call? You don't think the person that took my call wouldn't have taken the call from national college football reporters who are going to put out this story, intimating that LSU football is involved, when clearly it did not involve LSU football? See, there's a difference between intending to seek the truth and report facts, and I'm going all these old lines. What's the old line? Don't let the facts get in the way of a good story. That's what this feels like right now. Shame on the Athletic in every way. Must be dying for subs right now. If that's the time, if you don't even take the time to get a response from someone who can answer that question, who answered it for me, they certainly would have answered it for the Athletic. And you put out a tweet that has the LSU football helmet on it. You include Lane Kiffin and Damon Williams when that had nothing whatsoever at all to do with this. It's lazy. It's misleading. It's disingenuous. It's deceitful. I hope that wasn't the case. But two reporters, I'm certain an editor as well, and that's what they come up with? It's brutal. And it's unfortunate because it's not your job, the consumer. It's not your job to go through the checks and balances of what reporter's good, bad. Like, if you believe a reporter, an outlet has credibility, then you should be able to believe their reporting. And I'm going to tell you, everything I look at with the Athletic moving forward now, I will look at with great caution after something like this. Because two reporters and at least one editor let that pile of crap go through without making one simple phone call that could have answered the question and prevented all of this from Friday to Monday. You want to report? And by the way, something else we told you. There was more than a dozen schools that got these notices from the CSC. Why did they pick LSU? It's the biggest brand. It's the biggest name of the more than a dozen that got these notices from the CSC. It was going to get the most headlines. It was going to get the most clicks. And that's the unfortunate part because that's not the job. Again, maybe I'm Pollyanna. I don't mean to be sitting in an ivory tower in this whole thing and act like I'm flawless because I'm not. I make mistakes too, but this isn't a mistake. This was lazy at best, disingenuous and deceitful at worst. And I don't know where it falls because I don't know those reporters. But you, the audience, deserve better. And I gave you that on Saturday when I did that episode, clearing up a lot of this. And guess what? I was right. Not the national guys at The Athletic because they were too lazy to make one stinking phone call to get the story right. It's Locked on LSU, your team every day. This is Mazda's moving the game forward. For those who show there's more to the score than what's on the screen. You know, as we move through college basketball season, how about the LSU women's basketball team? Winners of 7 in a row. Man, incredible job by Flaugier, Michaela, Jada Richard, Malaysia Fulwiley coming over from South Carolina, starting 0-2 in conference play, and not only winning 7 straight, but their most recent win by 40 over a ranked Alabama team. Yeah, Kim Mulkey has the squad playing hard, playing to win, and potentially staring down another Final Four. Well, these remind us of what it really takes to raise the bar. It's the extra work off the court, dialing in every detail, giving it that extra fire, the grit, the I never quit. Mazda puts that same passion into every model. Highlights make the reel. What it took to get there makes it count. There's more to a Mazda because there's more to you. I want to get back into the episode, but I do want to thank you as always for making Locked on LSU your first listen of the day. Thank you for making Locked on the #1 sports podcast network. If you haven't already, please go check out our new Everydayer Club. It's access to an ad-free audio feed for Locked on LSU, compatible with Apple, Spotify, all the major podcast apps, and an invite to the members-only Locked on Everydayer Club Discord server, which includes a group chat just for listeners of this show. So please tap the link in the show notes if you'd like to learn more. I had the chance on Monday to visit with Bernard Gooden. And Bernard Gooden is a guy with great energy who I've really enjoyed speaking with and getting to know a smidge during his time in Baton Rouge, a short stint. Remember, Gooden came over from South Florida in the spring transfer portal window, so he didn't show up at LSU till June. So he was only here from June through the bowl game at the end of December. So you're talking about, 6-7 months that he spent in Baton Rouge, and now his stint here is over. But in a very relatively short amount of time, Bernard Gooden became a fan favorite. Maybe because he was an undersized interior defensive lineman. Maybe it's just because of the way and the nature and how he played the game. An all effort, interior defensive lineman for LSU this season. Well, I love Bernard Gooden's energy. And the last time we saw him, though, unfortunately, he was being carted off the field at the bowl game. And, this is one of those stories that I look at, and I'm very thankful that it's played out the way it has for Bernard Gooden. But it also gives you pause, right? So, first of all, Gooden, as a fifth-year senior, could have opted out of the bowl game and just said, you know what, I'm going to stay healthy. I'm going to go get ready for the draft. Instead, Bernard Gooden decided, I'm rolling with my teammates, rolling with my guys, one more game. And so Gooden stays and goes and plays in the bowl game and was having a really good game, by the way. And then he ends up going down with an injury and gets carted off the field. And, we all see that. And it's one of those things where you fear the worst, but you don't want to say it out loud. But thankfully for Bernard Gooden, they went and did the x-ray, the MRI. It was just a high ankle sprain. So Gooden did kind of talk about that moment in the bowl game when I had my conversation with him.
Oh, yeah, you never want to get hurt. I feel like the initial reaction, it just was emotional because, like, dang, last one, like, this how I'm going out, Like, I don't want to end my career in the last game being hurt. So it was like at first, but once I got through that, and then it was like we did the MRIs, and, like, I trusted our staff, and then my agent came up with a plan. It was like, I'm good. I ain't got nothing to stress about.
Yeah. So
once I got to the stairs and stuff.
So you were just down for a few weeks?
Yeah, literally like a month, I'll say.
So he was out for a month, had the high ankle sprain. I did have a source disclose to me that he did have the surgery, the tightrope procedure, which helps stabilize and accelerate the recovery, which is awesome. So now you're talking about a guy that's already he's in Dallas-Fort Worth training at the same place where Will Anderson trained before the draft. So with a lot that specialize in training defensive linemen for the draft and for the NFL. So going to get healthy for Pro Day, which is coming up later in March. And I don't know if there'll be a combine invite. We'll wait and see. But even if there's not, he'll have the opportunity at Pro Day and then top 30 visits, and could very well be a day 3 NFL draft pick. He's one of those guys that it's going to take the specific team that sees his value, but he's also a guy that you can tell just by that story is a team first guy. A guy who could very well have chosen not to play in the bowl game, but wanted to ride with his guys and did, and has no regrets. Now, the other thing about Bernard Gooden is that I come to appreciate greatly. He is a guy that is super high energy. You talk to Bernard Gooden, he's always smiling, tons of energy, he's a funny guy. And one of the first practices of fall camp, I remember going out there and I'm watching the defensive line do drills, and Bernard Gooden just wouldn't shut up. Like, he's just trash talking the whole time. Like, just never turning it off. And at one point, Brian Kelly went over there and actually told him to shut up, used an expletive, whatever. But anyway, so I kind of relayed that story to Bernard, and I want to play this interaction for you because I think it'll give you a great sense of his energy, his emotion, his passion, his all of his mentality, all of that stuff.
I remember one of the first days of fall camp, maybe one of the first padded days, went out there. And I was watching the defensive line. Dude, you never stopped talking the whole practice. And and at one point, BK went over and was like, "Hey, man, I think he used it. I think he used an excellent. He was like, "Shut the up," whatever. What is do your teammates get annoyed with you at practice?
I say the offensive side does.
Yeah, I bet they do. What about during a game, man? Do you carry that over you? You talk trash the whole game?
Yeah, I feel like I do towards the end. I feel like in the beginning I'm kind of just filling it out, trying to see where his mind at. When to cover up. Then I start. Yeah, I really get he's kind of my X factor. My X factor come on.
Was there anybody that you could tell this year that you really got under their skin?
South Carolina. South Carolina line, I was getting in their head. Nah, for real. I think you like that. Okay.
That's so.
He is a ton of energy, great outlook and perspective. And even though it was a short amount of time, a great Tiger. He talked about in that interview. If you want to hear the entire interview, it's my interview on my radio show After Further Review with Bernard Gooden. You get it YouTube or podcast. If you just search AFR LSU, you'll find it. But it was a great conversation. He talked about loving LSU, the emotion of playing in Tiger Stadium, something unmatched. And even like young LSU fans that would play him in the video game and what that meant to him to have LSU fans come up and recognize him. It's something he just didn't have at South Florida, but had even in a short stint at LSU. Bernard Gooden, one that we hope hears his name called in the NFL draft, and a guy that's super easy to cheer for. Wish him well in his recovery from his ankle injury and as he moves on to the NFL. A guy that's a future potential NFL draft pick who spent this past weekend on LSU's campus and could be the next in a long line of DBU standouts. We'll explain next. Locked on LSU, your team every day. Today's episode is brought to you by Indeed. Hiring isn't just about finding someone willing to take the job. It's about finding the right person with the right background who can actually help your business move forward. That's why you need Indeed. Indeed sponsored jobs is the move. Because instead of hoping the right person stumbles across your post, Indeed helps you match with quality candidates by boosting your job listing to the people who fit your specific criteria, whether it's life skills, certification, or location. If I were hiring, you wouldn't just want someone who could help. You want someone with real experience who can jump right in. And that's what you're going to love about Indeed. You can get specific and you can target exactly what you need. And here's a stat that says it all. In the minute that I've been talking to you, companies like yours made 27 hires on Indeed, according to Indeed data worldwide. So if you're hiring, spend less time searching and more time interviewing candidates who check all your boxes with Indeed sponsored jobs. Listeners of this show will get a $75 sponsored job credit to help get your job the premium status it deserves at Indeed.com/podcast. That's Indeed.com/podcast. Terms and conditions apply. Hiring? Do it the right way with Indeed. Well, it was a really busy recruiting weekend for LSU. And there were three players in particular on campus that are worth noting. And, you know, we might have talked about one of them on a previous episode, but it was a JUCO offensive lineman that visited Auburn and Alabama. And I'm trying to see if I have this. I don't think I told you this yet. So it was Auburn, Alabama, Georgia. His name is Adrian Lamb, and he's a 2026 target. So Adrian Lamb, Florida, a redshirt freshman at Georgia Military College. He is set to sign with whatever school he picks on Wednesday during the early signing day. He'll be a 2026 signee. And then there were two 2027 prospects. And one of them is the number one cornerback in America for 2027, Joshua Dobson. And on Monday, after the visit, Steve Wiltfong from Rivals put out a Fong bomb prediction, predicting that Joshua Dobson will, in fact, land at LSU. Now, Dobson, just to give you a little bit of the background here, 6'1", 170 pounds. He is a consensus 5-star. In the Rivals industry ranking, he is a 5-star, the number 5 player in the country, the number 2 cornerback, and the number 1 player out of North Carolina. So you were talking about a massive prospect here in the number 1 cornerback in America by the scouting services. So when you start to think about the value of Corey Raymond, my goodness, does this not just keep on revealing itself? Not that I ever doubted, but there are some of you who did. When Corey Raymond wasn't retained by Brian Kelly, The narrative from some LSU fans, you know who you are, I don't need to go find the receipts, was the game had passed Corey by. Corey got lazy, you stopped recruiting, which nothing was further from the truth. Ed Ogeron got fired, a lot of guys left, and that was that. But when you look at what Corey Raymond's been able to do since being back at LSU, right? Mansour Delane becomes the number one corner in the draft. You get 5-star DJ Pickett here, who becomes a freshman All-American, defensive freshman of the year. You've got Haven Finney signed for the 2026. He was the number one corner in 2027 who reclassed. Now the number one corner in 2027, Joshua Dobson, is projected to pick LSU. No, he hasn't committed. And look, he can't sign until next December. So you're talking about, 11 months till he'll, or 10 months until he signs. So a long way to go. But my goodness, is Corey Raymond not doing incredible work as you continue to see how he is rebuilding DBU. PJ Woodland, the incredible job that they've done developing PJ Woodland there into a legitimate NFL prospect as well. And the other prospect that was on campus this weekend was Jaden Bryant as well. Jaden Bryant is one of the top edge rushers in the country for 2027, who's already committed to LSU. As a matter of fact, Rivals has him as the number 11 overall prospect and the number 1 edge rusher in the country. So Lane Kiffin already inked a massive class for 2026, both high school and portal, and getting to work on 2027 as well. Okay, that'll do it for us here on today's episode. Podcast, YouTube, please subscribe. Please, thank you for watching on the Gulf Coast Sports and Entertainment Network as well. And let a friend know if they love the Tigers. We got you here every single day for Locked On LSU. It's your team every day.